Good evening, and to the February 2021 vacation. In accordance with the state sunshine law of New Jersey, adequate notice of this meeting of the Hillsborough Township Board of Education was provided on February 18th, 2021 to the Hillsborough Beacon and the Courier News. Mr. Mahmood, may we please have a roll call?
Surely. Mr. Gillette?
Here.
Mr. Kidd?
Here.
Mr. Marini?
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. Maroon? Mrs. Nurse?
Here.
Mr. Oliver?
Here.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Here.
Mrs. Stats?
Here.
And Ms. Trujillo?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. May we now please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the correspondence that was received and just summarize the topics briefly. We have the correspondences listed, and the topics that we received, many letters were requesting more in-person schooling and comparing our district to other districts. I responded to all of the emails, and if I have not, so I responded to all the emails, and I wanted to say that the board's ad hoc reopening committee continues to discuss parameters around the broader district reopening, and tonight Dr. Antunes will provide an update to the district's plans. The second one is plans for this year's seniors, including prom and graduation, and as I responded in the email, those are being worked on through a committee of students with Mrs. Bingert, and we will hope to update the public as soon as we have definitive information, but please know that these plans are being worked on and discussed. Then next, we had some concerns about the weather and how weather calls are being made. And I wanted to just say that I empathize with parents' frustrations about the switch from hybrid to all virtual. And I also wanted to acknowledge our administration, specifically Dr. Antunes and Mr. Mahmood's great leadership for making those decisions that keep our staff and our students safe. And one of the things that I wanted to share, and I've said that in email responses to the public, is that prior to being board president, I didn't see the behind the scenes of all this stuff. And so in talking to our district leadership, it is not easy to make that call. And I think Dr. Antunes did explain a bit of the process last week, in 2 weeks ago in the board meeting. But I guess the point is that I wasn't up at 3 a.m. with the conference calls and having to make those decisions. And I just want to acknowledge that our administration is doing an excellent job in keeping our students and staff safe. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hio. I also just want to reach out to Mr. DeLuca and his team and our custodial staff. They're equally as, and Mrs. Bennett, they're equally as, they're on the call with us at 3 a.m. and they have sleepless nights as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmood. I had meant to include them also, so I really appreciate you also including them. Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it over to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Trujillo. So good evening, everybody. So weather this February is certainly wreaking havoc in many areas in our lives. I'd like to do a shout out and a kudos to our buildings and ground staff who have done an outstanding facilities, parking lots and walkways clear and safe, and to the Township Public Works Department for keeping our roads plowed as well. It has truly been a monumental task and everyone's work is greatly appreciated. Even today, who knew that it was going to be that quick, coming down that quickly? So typically this time of year, we all begin to yearn for a hint of spring. We're getting there. The days are getting longer. In fact, we had 9 hours and 26 minutes of daylight on January 1st. And today we're up to 11 hours and 2 minutes of daylight. So a gain of 1 hour and 36 minutes. We'll take it. Before I move on to my presentation this evening, I want to commend everyone who coordinated the virtual mental health fair, Hope for Tomorrow, and for the over 100 people who attended virtually. That was held February 17th. And for those who led the live webinar, Minding Your Mind, held on February 2nd. Two very timely and helpful events, really well organized and run. by our borough cares, borough safe committees, and huge shout out to everybody. It really was a wonderful event. So this evening I have two presentations and I'd like to share them with you. Let me get to it. The first one is about tentative board goals. So every year, annually, the board is supposed to adopt goals. And so with the transition of the board and all of the transition that we've been through, we're finally ready to take a look at the tentative board goals. Tentative only because these are the overarching goals. We'll go through this pretty quickly. These are overarching goals that the board has met and discussed, both in public and in committee. And then at our next meeting, you'll see that there'll be much more specificity and action plans to these goals. So goal 1 will include the board working toward improving governance practices and increasing their own board and committee effectiveness. And there are ways that can be done, both with the help of school boards and between and among board members, that we will be providing specifics on at our next board meeting. The second goal is having the board develop a plan, likely a multi-year plan, to improve and enhance communication with all stakeholders. So we'll define stakeholders, we'll define what that plan will look like. It's very possible that these goals, just like superintendent goals, board, teacher, administrative goals, teacher goals, they do get tweaked as you go along. They are live and ongoing goals. And sometimes we add stuff, sometimes we adjust things, but the same holds true for the board. And there are 2 goals. There are huge goals, but there are 2 goals. And then there's an action timeline that the board is looking at this point. So tonight, 2/22/21, the board is looking to discuss and adopt tentative 2021-2022 board goals. At our next board meeting on March 8th, we'll provide greater specificity and adopt the 21-22 board goals, not the tentative ones, the real ones with the specificity. And then we'll have 3 progress updates, April, June, and September, on how we're doing with the goals, how the board is doing with the goals, what they want to tweak, what they want to adjust, what they want to revise, maybe even what we want to add. And then next December, there'll be sort of an end of year report, sort of like a summative evaluation that teachers and administrators get. And at this point, that's sort of the timeline that we're looking at. Again, that can also be adapted a little bit or adjusted a little bit. Maybe it won't be the first board meeting in December. Maybe it'll be the second, but that's the timeline that we're looking at and seeking. So that is a very quick overview of board goals for 2020-2021. Mrs. Trujillo, do you want me to get right into the next one? Okay, so let me go to our next one. Okay, I know that everybody has been waiting for this, and I want to put out there that this is a very broad overview of what we're looking at for the next couple of weeks and into the next through the end of the school year. So we called it the COVID-19 reintegration, the road forward. The reason why we called it the road forward is because that's what the governor called it, the road forward plan. So that's why we called it that. It's important to make very clear to everyone that our goal is full integration of our students into our schools every day safely. We all want our students back. That's why we're here. That's why we're teachers and administrators. This is why we do what we do, to get to be with our students, to have kids in school. And we're looking for full integration of our students into our schools every day safely. I believe that everybody agrees on this goal. I believe that the union leadership agrees on this goal, teachers agree on this goal, board members agree on this. How we get there is where we differ a little bit, but we all are seeking the same goal. So there's a timeline that we wanted to share. And remember, March 13th was the day, and I'm not going to read every single one of these. This will be available for everybody on the website and on the board, this board meeting. So I'm not going to read everything, but there are some really important dates. March 13th is when Governor Murphy declared the state of emergency. And then it was the 16th that everybody pivoted to virtual school. And from March to June, we were doing virtual school the best that we were able to do it in the time frame that we had. And we've come a long way since that time. It's been almost a year, and we've come a long way since that time, us and other districts across the state and across the country. Then at the end of June, we were provided a plan from the Department of Ed. And then we immediately established those committees that we needed to establish, had our committee meetings, established the teams for each of the school, submitted it to the county office when we needed to do that, made a presentation to the board. What's interesting is that we had to submit the plan to the county office, and we did that by the end of July. On August 13th, Governor Murphy signed another executive order allowing districts who needed additional time to implement health and safety precautions and for families to have the option to engage in full-time remote learning. So we submitted the plan, and then out came the executive order saying we could have an option for remote learning. So we sort of came back together and said, how are we going to do this? We heard inklings of this throughout, and so we needed to operationalize it. September 4th was our first day of school, which we decided to go all virtual for all students and staff through the end of September, except for our low incident special ed classes who started off, those are our most severely disabled students, who started off 4 days per week on September 8th. Our staff came in, worked with our students. They had what they needed to start, which was we're thankful for that. September 29th was then the first day of hybrid learning for our students. We had on February 2nd, the ad hoc reopening committee of the board was established. And we've met once already since February 2nd, and we're actually have another meeting scheduled for tomorrow. And then at the last board meeting, the board passed a resolution to recommend the inclusion of public school district personnel in the vaccine allotment and frontline workers. Everybody was on board with that. Today, we started our second wave of at-risk, welcoming our second wave of students in at-risk populations back to school. So that would be our ESL population, our ESS population, and I apologize for the error there. I will fix that. And our other classified students. So perhaps they're not our most severely disabled student, but they are at risk, and so we needed to bring them back. So we just started that today. Another reason why we were thankful that we were able to get the day of school in. We didn't want to adjust that if we were able to help it, and so that was positive. And then, of course, this evening we're just providing an overview of our reintegration moving forward. So that's the timeline that we put together. So what guides our decisions? Now, there is no rank order preference to any of this. This is just the way that we put it together. And a lot of people have been asking, it's like, what do you use? How do you I can assure you that there's no magic to this. These are the things that we use. We obviously look at the governor's executive orders and restrictions, all of the CDC guidelines, the New Jersey Department of Health, our local Department of Health, our district physician. We have the CALI report, which is the COVID-19 Activity Level Index report, our daily monitoring that we do of our staff and students, consultation with our district physician and our local Department of Health, all of our operational departments, so that's buildings and grounds, that's transportation, food services, our environmental consultants, our architect, our mechanical engineers, any of the staff and community survey results, both formal and informal, our feedback and input from our district and building-based administrators, of course, our legal counsel, and consultation with other superintendents across the state, but also superintendents in the county. And the Somerset ESC is the executive county superintendent. So that's the county office. So all of those things together help to guide our decisions. What are some factors that we must consider? So we always want to consider health and safety. And when we say this, it's health and safety of each other, our students, our staff members. It's health and safety overall for everybody. Of course, our staffing. How many staff members do we have quarantining working from home? How many staff members are coming in? How many staff members have other issues that we're trying to help them to navigate? Any facility limitations? And we know we have facility limitations, but we're not the only district with this. Everybody has facility limitations. to maintain 6 feet head to head. Financial constraints. There are financial constraints. The business office, Mr. Mahmood and Mrs. San Giuliano, have done huge, excellent work with the money that came in, CARES Act, but Borough did not get a ton of that. And we've used every cent of it and are using it very, very well and efficiently. And of course, stakeholder input. Stakeholders, again, I want to just define for right now, when we're talking about stakeholders, we're talking about parents, students, staff members, all staff members, administrators, all of those departments we talked about, buildings and grounds, transportation, food services, all staff members. That's who we're considering our stakeholder input at this point. So what have we done? What are we continuing to do? And there are 4 areas that we're going to briefly talk about: health and safety in facilities, academic, social, emotional health, and equity, and equal access. And this is not by any means an exhaustive list of what we do. These are more the highlights of what we've done and what we're continuing to do. So we have absolutely completed a review, assessment, and repair to our ventilation systems, including the exhaust fans. We've enhanced our preventative maintenance, sort of up the game a little bit, expedited filter changes on rooftop units and classrooms. If somebody says something is off, immediately the teacher or the staff member goes through the chain of command, goes to the building principal, the building head custodian, the maintenance, and we get it done. We immediately prioritize those. We've created, installed, provided plexiglass partitions. We've enhanced our daily cleaning procedures and protocols. One of the ways we've done that was by procuring electrostatic sprayers, which allows our staff to efficiently sanitize all those large and small areas in a very efficient manner. And that's district-wide. We've provided PPE to staff. If they've requested it, we've provided it, and increased PPE to at-risk staff. So our custodial and maintenance, our staff members who work with our most severely disabled students, continuous consultation with the Department of Health, both New Jersey and local, our district physician, and everybody else that we outlined earlier. Academically, while it looks different, we have fully implemented our programs to support our students. We've distributed Chromebooks K-12. Now, we always distribute Chromebooks, but not at that lower level. We've deployed, and Mr. Handler's team has done a great job doing that. Not only have we distributed and deployed them, but we've also kept up with the maintenance on them as necessary. And we've offered focused professional development for staff. Under social emotional health, there's certainly access to counseling services district-wide, access to one-to-one staff. A lot of that happens in the afternoon and off hours. And our virtual mental health programs, things like Hope for Tomorrow, Minding Your Mind, and our typical life skills programs that we've shifted, that Mrs. Maggio and our Municipal Alliance and our teams there shifted from in-person to virtual. And in terms of equal access, we've made sure that we've distributed food to all students, whether they be virtual or hybrid. We've included technology support, including Wi-Fi accessibility to all families. Now, we don't have many families. We're very lucky to not have many families who need that, but we do have some, and we are able to assist in obtaining that, which helps us to eliminate the digital divide. And of course, the creation and dissemination of surveys. Again, both formal and informal. So there are options. There are many of them. And we have been and will continue to review and flesh out options with the stakeholder groups as outlined. We have meetings scheduled. Like I said, we have meetings scheduled tomorrow. It just so happens the timing of ad hoc reopening committee meeting. We're meeting, leadership team meeting scheduled, which is all district and building-based leadership. We've got a meeting with the HEA leadership scheduled. We've got Mr. Mahmood is constantly talking to our external professional services. And then, of course, our staff and community input via survey. There will be more surveys coming out. We needed to, while we have a framework, we wanted to talk it through with the board ad hoc reopening committee, the building leadership and district leadership and HEA leadership. So we have been, I said it, I'm going to say it again, we have been and will continue to review and flesh out options with stakeholder groups as outlined. Some of them may be options in another district that are just not going to work for Hillsborough, and vice versa. There are things that might work for Hillsborough that just won't work for other districts. Options can include anything. They may include anything from eliminating virtual Wednesdays to having parents having to decide all in or all out. There will be no hybrid option, perhaps. Half days, no lunch, full days, dipping our toe into serving lunches, bringing back students in a phase in and phase up process. We began, I stated a little bit earlier, we began with our most at-risk students, our most severely disabled students. We then reached out to our next at-risk populations, our ESL, our ESS, and our other classified students. The next population that we're going to talk to all these committees about would include those students who may not be classified, who may not be ESL students, who may not have any issues in that realm, but we know they're experiencing either greater academic issues, perhaps they're experiencing some social, emotional, or some mental health issues that we'd like to get them back into school next. And then we're focusing on our young learners, our kindergarten through fourth grade, fifth grade learners, and then work our way up. We could come up with a timeline right this second, and in 3 minutes, it would be completely different, which is why I believe that it's very important that instead of, I know myself personally where I live, I had an update, I had a revision, and then I had 2 revisions after that within 24 hours. We're trying to avoid that confusion. Our intent is not to frustrate anybody. This is frustrating for us. It's frustrating for us as administrators, as educators, as parents, and we understand that it's frustrating for you as well. We're truly doing our best to provide the services to our students in a phase in and phase up process. Now, there is some good news on horizon. There are limitations, but there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Some of these are completely out of our control, and some of them are within our control. Certainly, the first COVID-19 vaccine was given December 15th. As of this week, 1 million vaccines have been administered. All of our school nurses have been given the opportunity to be vaccinated, and we know that vaccines are being more widely distributed. Although if you had a chance to listen to the governor's address last week on Friday, we know that the weather has provided some untimely delays in delivering the vaccines. Again, those are things out of everyone's control. And we want to remember that while there have been no known confirmed cases of COVID transmission in our schools. We thought there may be one in one of the buildings, one of the elementary buildings, but since that hasn't been confirmed to us, that's why I say it this way. Confirmed positive cases seem to be trending down. Limited spectators are now welcome at athletic events. And we are moving forward with phase 2 of our repair, replace, and revive referendum work. The reason why that's important to note here is because this referendum work is addressing some of the other issues, ventilation and those types of issues district-wide. So that's why it's important to note that here. Moving forward, I mentioned earlier, we will be meeting with the Board Ad Hoc Reopening Committee as well as with HEA leadership and district and building administrators. We are preparing our next survey. We're looking for some input from these groups of people who represent the larger or our larger community. Some final thoughts. Remember, when we began this brief presentation, we outlined our goal clearly. That is to get students fully integrated into our schools every day safely. We are maintaining our 6-foot distance head to head. There are some districts throughout the state and the country who are not maintaining that 6-foot distance. We are doing that at this point. We believe it to be important. I have to repeat, because it's important, that the intent is never to frustrate anyone. We are feeling the frustrations again as educators and as parents ourselves, and we appreciate your patience and understanding. This is certainly not an easy task, and in some ways we are much like other districts, and in some ways we're not. We never really know the logistics and the operational forms that have to take place in order for everything to flow smoothly. We are committed to our goal. We endeavor to increase in-person learning for this school year within the third marking period and into the fourth marking period. We will do our best to communicate information as soon as possible and as clearly as possible as it's appropriate. We will utilize all available resources to the fullest extent, including financial. Again, if you listen to the governor's address on Friday, you know that there are going to be some additional funds available. We know that Hillsborough is slated to get some funds. Unfortunately, we won't know while the governor gave a brief overview and the acting commissioner gave a brief overview of what the funds may be utilized, how the funds may be utilized, the allowable resources, the allowable utilization of those funds are not forthcoming until the middle of March. And we will be on top of it. I think, as a matter of fact, we already have a date in our calendar to meet on it with myself, Mr. Mahmood, Dr. Feltry, Ms. San Giuliano, Mr. Callahan. So Dr. Radwan, we've already got that in our calendar to talk about that. And just for your information, we are planning for in-person instruction for summer 2021, as well as for the 21-22 school year. That's also the way we're budgeting. We're budgeting for in-person instruction for the next school year, for the summer and the fall. It was a very brief and quick overview of sort of where we are, and we will have updates as we continue on this road. Ms. Trujillo.
Thank you very much, Dr. Antunes, for that report. I thought that was very informative. I know that this will not exactly satisfy many of the letters that we've received. I think, so the board appreciates you sharing your thought process and also the timeline of when we might expect next updates. And I, as the board president, will continue endeavor to update the public at each board meeting with what we know at that time. So thank you again, Dr. Antunes.
You're welcome.
I would like to now move along to the committee reports. And actually, before we go with our board committee reports, I'd like to invite Miss Christina Smith from the HEA to give a report, an update actually on the Postcards for Kids initiative. And let me see if we have Miss Smith, if we could elevate her to a panelist so that she could speak and give us the update.
I don't know if you heard me. If you want me to switch the slide when you'd like me to move the presentation, just let me know and I'll do that.
Welcome, Ms. Smith.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Tonight I have an update on 2 HEA projects. First, I would like to report that Pride sponsored a Feed the Essential Workers initiative. On February 12th, the HEA, with the help of Jersey Mike's and Just Subs, fed 200 essential workers in Hillsborough. This included the police, the 2 urgent cares, including Family Care and Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas, our assisted living and nursing homes, including Avalon Assisted Living, All American Assisted Living, Brookdale Assisted Living, and Foothill Acres. It was our pleasure to thank the essential and frontline workers and show them the support and appreciation for all they do. Next, I have an exciting announcement. The Postcards for Kids project has been concluded and 3 winners have been chosen, 1 from Aris, 1 from the middle school, and 1 from the high school. The HEA Pride Committee would like to thank the Borough Pride Committee panel for their help with picking the 3 winners. We received over 180 creative and inspiring submissions, and it was not easy to choose. So thank you for your help. And now for the winners. From Aris, the winner is Akshaya Suresh Kumar. Congratulations, Akshara. And this is her postcard. From the middle school, the winner is Jeremy Soberbray. Here's his. Congratulations, Jeremy. And from the high school, the winner is Jessica Herman. Congratulations. Your drawings will be made into 1,500 postcards that will be sent to elementary students over the next few months. The winners will also receive a $25 Amazon gift card. Thank you to everyone who supported this project, and congratulations again to the winners. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith, for the update on the feeding the essential workers. That was wonderful to hear, and also the Postcards for Kids initiative. I'd like next to turn it over to committee reports from the board, and it's listed with the operations committee as a township committee liaison. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So let me start with the township committee. Last week, I'm sorry, I lost my notes on this. I was trying to find them just a few minutes ago. The board leadership, that's board president, Mrs. Trujillo, board vice president, Mrs. Stotts, and myself as township liaison, met with the municipal leadership. That was Administrator Anthony Ferreira, Mayor Sean Lapani, and Committeeman Frank Delcourt. Dr. Antunes and Mr. Mahmood were also in the meeting, and Mrs. San Giuliano also. This was more of a mostly just a get to know you meeting to say hello. They did have some questions about school reopening. You heard some of the same things discussed at that meeting as you heard here tonight in Dr. Antunes' presentation. So that was good. And then we had some other discussion about future plans and needs for the district and how the township might be able to help. I'll just leave it at that because those are negotiation type things that we shouldn't talk about too quickly. But overall, it was a good meeting, and we hope that we can do this a few times during the year. Is that correct, Mrs. Trio?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you.
I think it was good to meet with them. So let me move to and if I left anything out, Mr. Trio, you can pick up after I'm done with the operations committee. Operations committee met. So look, I might need some help with Mr. Mahmood on this because we met 13 days ago. And when we're doing building projects, things move quickly. So if my updates are out of date, Mr. Mahmood, jump in and help me out. Okay. So besides the regular crew at our meeting, we had regular crew meeting, Mr. Mahmood, Mrs. San Giuliano, the building grounds professionals. We also had Kathy Major DiGregorio, who's our from Sodexo, our food service, and we had Mr. Wozni from EI Associates, who is our architect. First thing on the agenda was there's 1.5 people doing the school payroll right now for the district payroll. That's not enough. The 1.5, especially that 0.5 person, they're really overwhelmed. So it's tough to be half a person and get a job done. So we're going to bump that up to 2 people. We endorsed that. That was Mr. Mahmood's recommendation. So that's something that should come up even before the budget. That's going to be something that he's going to implement as soon as he can, if he hasn't already. What was that, Iman?
The placement of that position is on the agenda tonight.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I said it's going to be. It's even sooner than I thought, even. So we also talked about the referendum, both last year's projects, or last summer's projects, which are just about finished now. Let's put it like this: we had some additions to last year's projects, mostly in the areas of paving. The big ones being some paving at the high school, and especially the rebuilding the stairway from the school down to the athletic field. That's a project that could not be completed due to weather, so that's still outstanding. Just about everything else is done. About the projects which we recently approved the initial funding for HES. And Mr. Wozni assured us that even though we're going to have a lot of projects going next summer, we're well ahead of the game as far as securing the contractors. So we should be in much better shape for next spring and summer's projects than we were this year. Although we were in pretty good shape this year, we're even better shape. Then, of course, we had an update on the litigation, not litigation, let's put it this way, our attempts to resolve the issues still outstanding from the ESIP project, those having to do with Honeywell and their building management system. We had an update about that. That's in the hands of the special counsel that we hired, Mr. Tesser. So he's working on that. And finally, for Mr. Wozni items, and this is kind of his item, but not really. I mean, he's helping us with it. The HES playground, it's never good news. The day that I don't report about this, that'll be the good news because everybody will just be out playing on it. If you hear me say HES playground, it's not going to be good. So it's, once again, it's not good. Disputes between the Game Time, which is the equipment manufacturer, and the contractor who installed it, as to what was the, look, I can put there are two sets of, it's like a mini series at this point with two sets of plans, which is the real plans, which were they supposed to follow. I just want the kids to be able to, this springtime, to come out and play. And look, at least we're working on it. We're working towards a resolution for it. And I guess I could still be hopeful even 2 years later or 3 years later. Who knows at this point? After this discussion, we had brief presentations about the budgets for buildings and grounds, transportation. So these budgets presentations that we heard are not about staffing, or these budgets are about other items that they need, supplies and other things. So buildings and grounds, they've taken a hit on cost of supplies and the amount of supplies they need during COVID. So they're asking the budget to go up 2%. That's something at this point that we're endorsing. Of course, during the further budget discussions, we can talk about that more. Transportation. The thing on transportation is that we're being squeezed by the bus companies that we contract with. They have ways to drop our routes, and we have to rebid them. There's all kinds of things going on. Ms. Bennett recommends initially that we purchase 5 more 54-passenger buses to run routes ourselves. And in further discussion after that, followed up with Mr. Mahmood, he's not sure exactly if he's going to recommend 5 ultimately. The thing about the buses is that Ms. Bennett calculates that even purchasing 5 buses will save us money each year than if we had to pay contractors to run those routes. So even the cost of the buses and the cost of salary and benefits to the drivers and all the related costs, we'd still come out ahead. So we're going to see. It's a lot of buses. We're going to wait for the final recommendation, but the committee was not opposed at this point to having more buses. The committee also reiterated that in the best world, we'd like to offer more courtesy busing. We eliminated a lot of courtesy busing a couple of years ago. We'd like to offer more courtesy busing in the future as budgets would allow. That is I think we reiterated, I think we all agree, that that's the most efficient and safest way to transport kids to school when we're able to do it. Okay, so I'll try to finish up because I'm taking a lot of time, I realize. Mr. Mahmood talked about use of facilities by outside organizations. These are our indoor facilities, which we have not up to recently had the outside groups come in. We're allowing that now on a limited basis, following all state and our own guidelines. Access to maybe like the gyms, if there's direct access from outside, so they're not within the school buildings. And these groups are prioritized on groups that organizations with activities for our own Hillsborough students. So they're not private organizations of other people or other things. These are Hillsborough, mostly youth sports or recreation groups. So we're doing that on a limited basis, and they're monitoring it, and it's working well so far. And finally, I think I'll end with this one. Hopefully I can end with this one. Let's see if there's anything on the back here. No, not really. So we can end with Kathy Major DiGregorio gave us a good update on food service. And there was concerns at the start of this whole school year about how we would be able to get food to the students that needed it if they're not coming in every day for food. She's reported to us that this is working very well. Everybody, as far as she can determine, everybody that wants food can get it. That we're even delivering food. You can come and pick it up. You send it home with you. There's many ways to get it. And Mr. Mahmood can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's through a federal program or maybe a state program that we can offer food to everybody, not just lunches and meals for students that would normally be eligible through free and reduced lunch, but to every student. This is actually good because we have such a large district, and Kathy Major can purchase food in such quantity and make meals at such low cost. Oftentimes the reimbursement is more than we're actually paying for the food, the reimbursement from the state and federal. So the district this was a concern because you can't run a food service program in the black, you're not allowed. So because that would be taking other monies from other students' academic programs to pay for food, you can't do that. So it's working well, and we're happy to report. All right, that's it. I'm done. I have no more.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette, for the comprehensive report. Appreciate that. Ms. Maroon, if you would, with the Education Committee report, please. Thank you.
Sure. I promise I don't think I'll be as long. I could try, but not tonight. Maybe next time I'll make that one of my goals. So yeah, we met again. It was a long time ago. It was on February 10th. Everybody was present. We went through a number of things. The main action items that we had were book adoptions for the English 3, C, and CP ICR. We adopted and you'll see them listed today. It's called Black Nature, 4 Centuries of African American Nature Poetry for grade 11. And then we also had another book for grades 5 and 6, Confessions of an Imaginary Friend. We also talked about and pushed through, but we also voted on Social Emotional Learning Day proclamation from March 8th. I think we did this last year as well. So I think it's just rolling over, and we're just making sure that it's being kept up for a day of SEL. We also talked about the school calendar for 2021-2022. So that's also listed on the agenda for tonight as well. And I think everybody was able to look through and agree on that. Some things that we discussed was, again, the budget. We had Mr. Handler come in and talk about the technology budget, and we went through what that proposal was. We also talked about the curriculum budget and what needed to, what needed to be updated and everything that we needed to do for curriculum budget. Special services budget we went over as well. And Mrs. Radwan was able to give us a nice overview on that and what is expected for the special services budget. We went through the summer reading selection process and how they do like a March Madness, but it kind of goes through all year, and we're down to the final 4. I'm not gonna say too much because I don't know, the students know yet or not, but we do, and we're excited to see what the outcome of the final 4 is. And we also discussed it's on the agenda for tonight, changing the position title from guidance counselor to school counselor. Just updating that. And then we also had a very on equity and borough cares and the letter that Mr. Trabowski read to us at the previous meeting that he attended. And we went through that and we talked about some things and what we've already been doing, what more can we do, and how we can incorporate some more into our borough cares, into the equity issues. And I think that was about it. We talked about, moving the in-person instruction, which already occurred. And that was about it. I don't think there's anything else. Does anybody else have anything?
Thank you very much, Ms. Maroon, for that report. Thank you. Can I turn it over now to Ms. Stats for the communications committee update, and perhaps also if you wanted to share something about the Municipal Alliance.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. The Communications Committee met for the first time on February 16th. I'd say we have a group of very enthusiastic and ambitious board members and administrators that have a lot of great ideas and open-minded to each other's ideas. It was suggested perhaps adding a position of community outreach coordinator / central registrar. Obviously, you know, as a communications committee, we value communications. So to that end, a community outreach coordinator could address some of the issues regarding communications. That person would also serve as a central registrar to anything dealing with registering new students in the district and following up, especially with regard to residency requirements. As I've already pointed out, you know, the positive for that is, you know, dealing with improving communications, but we also are concerned with the added cost of that, especially compared to whether or not we're going to add any other positions that we lost a couple years ago. But we appreciated the you know, taking the issue of communication seriously to propose that position being added. Dr. Antunes shared that the pamphlet, Welcome to a Board of Education meeting, that has been available at in-person board meetings in the past, and it's going to be converted to a document that can be added on the district website. And she also shared that they have created a chain of command document for parents, and they're also working on for the staff. We also discussed how the social media can be used to promote positive and good things that are occurring in the schools. Regarding other facets of social media, can have its drawbacks. We worried about whether or not, you know, we should avoid being reactive as opposed to being proactive. We also talked about more collaboration with all stakeholders. That's already occurring as the administration and board members have met with various stakeholders. We also talked about reviewing and maybe defining more clearly the role that board members play as liaisons to different groups, such as the HSAs. We discussed the possibility of a town hall type of meeting that's made up of all stakeholders, establishing ways to highlight things around the district, and having more informal kinds of get-togethers with members of the public, such as walking around the track or meeting people where they are, maybe, you know, sort of some of the things that we did with the referendum. And exploring the continuation or reestablishment of the Rutgers Collaborative, and also considering a board retreat in June. So that's it as far as the Communications Committee. Related to the Municipal Alliance, and as Dr. Antunes already mentioned, I believe it was last Wednesday, there was the Hope for Tomorrow Mental Health Fair. And there were breakout sessions, but at the beginning, there was a very powerful presentation by the keynote speaker, Jordan, addressing his own very, very personal struggle, but celebration of how he is now dealing after having dealt with some depression. And also, I want to let you know, there's a Hope and Healing helpline that's available from the Somerset County. and that's available to anybody. It's temporary. It's going to expire in June as of now. Hope maybe it'll be extended. But it came about as a reaction to how people are being affected by the pandemic. The number is 908-231-6414. It's in English and Spanish. It's confidential, anonymous, and free. It's from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., 7 days a week. There are counselors, and this is available for everyone, no matter what age, whatever, everyone. And especially if you're feeling, really overwhelmed or stressed out for whatever reason, this is a way to seek help. And especially for parents, some parents are really worried about their own children dealing with the stress. But remember, it goes back to that often used analogy, if you're on a plane and the mask come down, you're supposed to put it on yourself first before you put it on your child. So parents, please make sure you're taking care of yourself. And in doing so, you're also on the road to taking care of your children as well. So let me just say that phone number again, 908-231-6414. And thank you, Mrs. Trio.
Thank you, Ms. Psats, for the Communications Committee report and also for sharing the information about the Somerset County's Hope and Healing program. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And then now I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Oliver for the Human Resources Committee report, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Human Resources Committee met on February 9th. We discussed, first topic was our payroll staffing. We've been struggling with that position and haven't really dedicated enough personnel to it. Mr. Mahmood did some surveys of surrounding districts and found that we were very understaffed for that position. We explored options for taking this into an outside payroll company like an ADP. However, that seemed to be very cost prohibitive for us. So Mr. Mahmood put a presentation together where we would hire another half of a person, basically. So now we'd have 2 full-time people within that department. He feels that would alleviate any burden, some gaps with absentees or sick leave or whatever. Once again, Mr. Mahmood is doing that without any real impact to the budget. He's doing it with pulling people from different areas and eliminating some substitutes over in Tony DeLuca's department on a case-by-case basis. So I can't stress the importance of how well this administration works in squeezing those dollars and saving the taxpayers money at every opportunity they have. And I thank Hyman for that hard work and Mike Callahan as well. We also had a presentation for some requests for some additional staffing, and there were 8 requests that the administration moved for a recommendation to the HR committee. 7 of those involve special ed and instructional aides. We're committed to that. That's state mandate. We have no choice. We have to do that. So obviously we're moving ahead. One position that we did lose 2 years ago during the budget cuts was the community outreach person. We are looking to bring that person back. We feel that there's some benefits, both from a strategic standpoint within the school, and then again, conveying that message to the community with things that we have going on. We're not 100% sold on that yet, but Mr. Mahmood is working very, very hard to try to find some resources within the budget and how we can make that as cost effective. We don't want to just bring back positions that we lost a couple of years ago for the sake of bringing them back, especially when we've lost some educational opportunities. So the administration takes that very seriously, and they will continue to look into that, and they will get back to us on that. But that is, again, something we are considering. We spoke about that community outreach person. We feel that does save us some money with people that are maybe out of district. So there are some other benefits that we could pick up. We discussed the issue with the cancellation of the PSATs and the staffing issues that occurred on that day that resulted in the cancellation. We're exploring so we don't ever have to have that happen again. I know Mr. Mahmood is working very, very hard to try to get that rescheduled because it did impact over 500 families. So again, something we're taking very seriously. We just want to fix our mistakes. We don't want to look back. I think that was about it. Over under on that, Iman, was what, 4 minutes? Was I over or under on it?
I think you were under 4, John. You were definitely under 4.
I don't think I missed anything. Chris or Lisa, do you fill it in if I did? But I think that pretty much covered it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oliver.
Seems like we talked longer than that, but I think that did cover everything. Thank you.
Excellent summary. Thank you very much. And that completes our committee reports. I'd like to then move on to approval of the February 8th public minutes. Thank you, Mr. Mahmood, for those excellent minutes. And if I could have a motion and a second.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Pulsifer and Ms. Stotts. Mr. Mahmood, maybe have a roll call. Oh, no, actually, it's just all in favor?
Yes, please.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Any abstentions?
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmood.
Thank you.
Then I'd like to now turn it over to I actually would like to thank all the board members for responding to the budget survey that Mr. Mahmood and Dr. Antunes and Ms. San Giuliano had sent out to the board for basically trying to prioritize, seeing if there's any areas where the board members kind of have agreement in the priority areas. So I appreciate everybody's responses on those. And then I'd like to now turn it over to the board for any public comments on that budget, anything on the budget. And if not, then I would like to open it up to the public to make comments right now just on the 2021-2022 budget. I'm going to go to the attendees and see if there are any. And Mr. Mahmood, did we receive any correspondence?
Ms. San Giuliano, did we? I don't recall that we did. We'll double check. No, we did not. We did not, President Trio.
Thank you, Mr. Mahmood. And I am not seeing any hands raised in the attendees list. Oh, Ms. Nurse, please.
I was just wondering, the survey that we completed as the board, will that be shared out at a next meeting or in a committee's?
I think we'll do both, Ms. Nurse. I think we'll do it both. I think we should do it both ways. As we continue to build a budget, I think it's important that the board discuss it publicly and that we're able to share it in committee and sort of focus on some of the areas. Hopefully we have some commonalities that we can share and that we're able to, as we continue to build it, to sort of meet those commonalities. And just a note as we're talking about it, Ms. Nurse, that tomorrow is the governor will be addressing, giving his budget address. So 48 hours after that, we do get our allocation. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahmood. And so now I'd like to turn it over to the public for the action agenda, since I didn't see any hands for the budget portion. So now I'd like to just read the statement that we have. So we very much welcome input from the public. During board meetings, there will be 2 30-minute periods of time that the meeting will be open for public comment, where members of the public are invited to comment, which they may do so via Zoom. They can raise your hand virtually. And during the first public comment period, members of the public may comment about items that are listed on tonight's agenda before the board votes. If time remains in this public comment period, members of the public may comment on any school or school district issue that a member of the public feels may be of concern to residents of the school district as per bylaw 167. Before you state your question or comment, you will be asked to provide your name and address. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but rather are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board believes there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent will address the comment. There may be times when a member of the public makes a comment or asks a question about personnel or hiring decisions. Kindly note that the Open Public Meetings Act and the privacy rights of public employees encompassed therein do not permit the board to discuss personnel issues in public session. And I also just wanted to do an aside and say that this meeting that we're having here is the board's business meeting in public. And so by law, and of course we do like to hear from the public, we have these 2 public input sessions. And I apologize in advance that this is not a question and answer session, so we will not be answering questions, but we will try to take those questions and address them at the next board meeting. Or if we're able to answer it after the question and answer session, after the public input session is closed, we will try to do so tonight. Thank you. And so I'd like to open it up to the public. And Mr. Mahmood, I'm not seeing any hands raised.
I'm not as well, President Trujillo.
Okay. Oh, I see one. All right.
Okay. It's
Could we
an
please
L?
elevate L? Yes,
Sure.
thank you.
That person has been elevated.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahmood. If you would state your name and address for the record. Oh, hello, Ms. Gaber, Miss Gaber Bayless.
Double last name. Hi, I just wanted to say thank you. I didn't quite get my hand raised in time earlier, but thank you so much for thinking about sharing the board's opinions on the budget to the public. I just want to say thank you for that, and thank you for all you've been doing. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gaber Bayless. And I see Ms. Gordon's hand raised. If we could have her elevated. Thank you, Mr. Mahmood.
Surely. Okay, Ms. Gordon, you should be on in a few seconds.
Hello, Ms. Gordon.
Hello, Dana Gordon for Dumont Round. I wanted to share with you the new CDC guidance that's been given out on the 12th. On the 12th, they changed their mitigation strategies for the schools. You can find this information on the CDC website. It's like the Cali report, and it's color coded, and it works on the per 100,000, but it's per week. It also has a color translation that's different. It's blue for low, yellow for moderate, orange for substantial, and red for high. I created a report, which I can share with you if you'd like, which shows the last 6 weeks transmission rate. And I just wanted to let you know we are in the high or the red. Our current rate is 165, and in order to be out of the high, we have to be under 100. I'm bringing this to your attention to make sure that we're following all 5 mitigation strategies and consider changing how we're handling situations where we cannot. As we're getting more requests for in-person school, all these strategies should be followed and because we are nowhere near substantial. More students are going to cause us to have issues with social distancing, which is one of the 5 mitigation strategies that they're requesting. But we are seeing improvement in cases, but I can't share that our numbers are lower than last time I spoke to you. They're actually higher. They went up and then they went down a little, but they're still higher than they were the last time we met. I would also like to thank you guys for your support at the last board meeting regarding teachers and vaccinations. As someone who just completed their 2nd vaccination, I would like to ask that you support in giving the teachers and the staff the ability to take the day off after their 2nd vaccination, because it will help you guys as a school district and it'll help our students having coverage. You'll end up having substitutes if you plan in advance. You know that you're going to be getting your vaccination at day 28 or day 21, depending on which one you get. This way, you already have a planned substitute and you have staffing and everything is taken care of for that day after, because it's really bad. You don't feel well at all. And I don't think a teacher really should be in teaching feeling that way. And on a final note, I wanted to thank everyone for the Hope for Tomorrow event. It was wonderful. The keynote speaker was amazing. I hear often about the mental health of students during COVID and how it's being affected, but the mental health of students mattered before COVID, and it's going to matter after. What Jordan went through and his openness really opened my eyes and gave me a lot of hope for people who are battling depression. It was an amazing story. And after listening to him speak and going to a breakout room, I learned a lot about how I can be an ally to students and how I can be an ally and support all people. But it was really, really great. And Hope for Tomorrow is something I've been part of since it started. And they're planning an event for the spring. So I'm hoping other people take advantage of going to this, especially if you feel like your child is having a hard time dealing with COVID or something like that. because it is really important to talk about it and understand what's going on. And if you want to learn more about it, please, make sure to reach out to somebody about it. And just like Ms. Stats said, there's that Hope and Healing line, which is 908-231-6414. And make sure if you need help that you go and get it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment, Ms. Gordon. I will take a look at the attendee list, and I'm not seeing another hand raised. So, Mr. Mahmood, I guess we could close public comment now, and then move along, Dr. Antunes, to, well, actually, was there any board comment on any committee? Oh, Ms. Stats, please.
I just wanted to comment on just this, through all the different conversations, social media, so many discussions regarding the pandemic. I just want to point out that sometimes solving whatever your own concerns are, or whatever group you may be part of, solving those problems related to the pandemic often creates or exacerbates problems for another group. I guess it's human nature to, when you're experiencing difficulty, you want to blame someone, you want to blame a person, a human. But the real villain here is the virus. So I just ask for people to use empathy for everyone, including those people who are pursuing something in this pandemic that might be counter to what you would prefer. But basically, almost all of us are going through difficulties, sometimes at odds with each other. And I guess empathy hopefully could help everyone deal with this better. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment, Ms. Stats. Are there any other board members who'd like to weigh in or make a comment? Seeing none, then Dr. Antunes, if we could go through the action agenda.
Surely, Mrs. Studio. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education approve the education agenda as follows: 9.1 to 9.4. Motion to discard mathematics textbooks. Motion to approve stipends for the after-school language extended exploration program between February 2021 and April 2021. Motion to approve new books as listed. And motion to approve the 2021-2022 district calendar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Antunes. Actually, may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. And is there any discussion? Ms. Stats.
Just my usual, about discarding textbooks, in particular math textbooks this time. I still wish we could make them available to those who would want them. I know it could be a difficult attempt now during the pandemic, but I still think it's possible. But I just wanted to reiterate that that I've said before. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stats. Any other comments? Mr. Pulsifer, please.
Yes, and looking at the calendar, I see that we still have emergency days, and I know we've kind of talked in the past about, given how well we've done with, at least organizationally, with making remote days happen. I'm just wondering what the discussion was in the education committee about whether or not to keep emergency closing days in the calendar.
Mrs. Maroon, do you want to address that, or would you like me to address that?
Let me look through my notes here.
While you're looking, I can just simply state that we're not sure if the state is going to allow for virtual days once we're back. They haven't done that. They've allowed it within this emergency period of time, but we don't know if they're going to allow it after that. So that was a full discussion with previous board members in the previous education committee before we started. And we briefly talked about it with this new committee, but that's sort of where we are with that at this time.
Well, certainly, if the state won't let us, then clearly we have to put those. I think maybe the state should spend some time thinking about the flexibility in scheduling and how much we go through when we have to bounce back and forth between not using any days and then years we use a whole bunch more days than we even allocated. The ability to use remote learning days in those days would certainly give us flexibility in adhering to the calendar that we set out in the first place. So I'm just interested to see how that will proceed. But certainly if the state government is still not giving us approval to do that, we need to account for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pulsifer. Any other comments? Okay, so Mr. Mahmood, if we could have a roll call, please. Thank you.
I have a
Oh, wait,
question.
Ms. Nurse.
And back to what Ms. Stats had said, I know the discarding of the books and the bids. Is there option to donate? What are the rules for that?
The rules include, as we explained, the rules include having to post the ISBN numbers, all the books on the state website. I believe it's for 180 days prior. That gives other people in the state the opportunity to get some books if they still have the program, stuff like that. And after that, then we are able to discard as a school district.
But when you post, is that for bids to buy them or is that for
No.
donations?
Go ahead.
For other districts that want them or are able to take them, Ms. Nurse, so even the most needy of districts, any of the New Jersey state districts, and we're just as equal to that. If we see books on their site that, on the site that we can use, we can always ask for them. But it is a process that the DOE provides for us, and it does enable districts. It's not a bid. They can just look at the list and they can contact us and say, we'd love to have them before you discard them.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahmood, for that explanation. And, okay, so seeing no other comments, if Mr. Mahmood, we could have a roll call, please.
Surely. Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Kidd?
Yes.
Mr. Marini?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroon?
Yes.
Mrs. Nurse?
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Pulsifer? Thank you. Mrs. Stats?
No for 9.1, yes for the others.
Thank you. And Ms. Trujillo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education approve the human resources agenda as follows: 10.1 to 10.11. Approve the motion to approve retirements and resignations. And I'd like to just shout out to those people who are retiring: Catherine Giandola, after 17 years of service; Margaret Eureka, our instructional assistant, after 20 years of service; Dina Kleinman, teacher at the middle school, after 17 years of service; Rosanna Mazzone, after 33 years of service as a secretary for Alton Road; and a teacher of art at the high school, Lynn Mound, after 29 years of service. Thank you so much. Motion to rescind the student teacher assignment as listed. Motion to rescind leaves of absence, and motion to approve revised leaves of absence. Motion to approve revised leave replacement teacher, and a contract change as listed. Motion to approve leaves of absence and approve appointments as listed. Motion to approve extra coverage as well as 6th and 7th period coverages. And motion to approve group changes as listed.
Thank you very much, Dr. Antunes. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Ms. Stats, please.
I just want to say congratulations and good luck to all the retirees. And in particular, Lynn Mao, not only is she retiring, she's really going out on top because I believe she's Teacher of the Year at the high school. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Stats, for that recognition. Any other comments on the HR agenda? Seeing none, Mr. Mahmood, if we could have a roll call, please.
Surely. Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Mr. Kidd?
Yes.
Mr. Marini?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroon? Mrs. Nurse? Got it. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes.
Thank you. Mrs. Stats?
Yes.
And Ms. Trujillo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The superintendent recommends that the Board of Education approve the operations agenda as follows. Outlined is 11.1 to 11.5. If it's okay with Mr. Mahmood, Mrs. Trujillo would like to add 11.6 to be the tentative board goals. Okay, and I apologize. I'm not sure it should be in ops, but we can do it in ops for now.
No problem. No, it's no problem, Dr. Antunes.
Okay. Motion to approve the monthly financials as well as the monthly bills. Motion to approve non-public expenditure resolution, and motion to approve the 2021-2022 Somerset County Educational Services Commission non-public agreements. Motion to approve a resolution to award the bid as listed, and then a motion to approve the tentative 2021-2022 tentative board goal 2021 tentative board goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Antunes. Thank you, Mr. Gillette, for the motion, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Kidd. Any discussion, Mr. Gillette?
So I already have an 11.6 on my agenda, which is the
Yes, I apologize.
bylaw.
Yes, I apologize, Mr. Gillette. We had to remove it because we didn't need to put it in there.
Oh,
And it is updated on board docs. So you should be ready to go.
okay.
So
I was an eager printer.
yes, you
Printed too
were.
soon. All right, I got you. That's all I had on this. Unless anybody else has any questions, Mr. Mahmood can answer them.
Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Gillette and Dr. Antunes and President Trujillo, we do have Mike Wozni, and I appreciate Mr. Wozni being on the call from the beginning in case the board had any questions about the bid award. And also, Vic was also a part of looking at it. So between council and our architect, I appreciate Mike being on the call and Vic doing last minute work to get these bids ready for approval tonight.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wozni. Mr. Gillette, do you recommend that we review that?
This is one of the things that came up within the last 2 weeks that we didn't cover at the operations meeting, correct, Mr. Mahmood?
Yes, Mr. Gillette. We knew that the bid was going to be open. We rushed to get the bid analyzed and pick the lowest responsible bidder because we want to get the contractors sort of ready to go. The sooner we get the contractors booked, the sooner we can get the work done.
So we ordered several different contracts to one general contractor. Is this for all kinds of work? I think that might be something the public would like to know.
Yes, and Mr. Wozni and Mr. Hill, do you mind if I ask Mr. Wozni to give an overview?
That would be great. Thank you very much, Mr. Mahmood and Mr. Wozni.
Good evening, everybody. So as you mentioned, we did have a general construction contract awarded a little while back. This particular contract is strictly for mechanical improvements at all the schools. So it's a mechanical contract.
Thank you. That's what I was wondering about. This is mechanical. Okay. Got it.
Thank you very much.
And how do we do? I know we had to disallow one bid, correct? I mean, because of bid was not proper or something. So we disallowed one bid. Is that correct, Iman?
That is correct, Greg. We did. What happens is if there is a material defect, Mr. Gillette, we will disallow a bid. And what we did is we worked with Vic on it, and we were able to award it to what we felt was the lowest responsible bidder. Who, by the way, if you look at the entire bid, we are below budget, which is extremely helpful that we are below budget, and we're grateful for that. That means a lot for us.
That was going to be my second question. Obviously, although we had to disallow, the nominally what the lowest bid was, it doesn't count as a bid. I shouldn't even call it the lowest bid because if it's not. If it has a defect, it's not a bid at all. It's nothing. But having said that, people still think of it. Well, that was a bid. But we still came out well with this contract, so that's good. So I'm all good with it.
Thank you very much. I do not see any other hands raised from the board. So if Mr. Mahmood, if we could have a roll call, please.
Sure. Mr. Gillette?
Yes.
Mr. Kidd?
Yes.
Mr. Marini?
Yes.
Mrs. Maroon?
Yes.
Mrs. Nurse?
11.6, yes. 11.1 through 11.5. I will be abstaining, and just so the public knows, The abstention is solely because being new to the board and not being part of the referendum discussions in the past, and being in the midst to working with Mr. Mahmood and making sure that I'm analyzing the monthly bills and understanding the financials appropriately, I choose to abstain, and we'll look forward to voting next month with more knowledge.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver?
Yes.
Mr. Pulsifer?
Yes.
Mrs. Stats?
Yes.
And Ms. Trujillo?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Antunes and Mr. Mahmood. I would like to now open it up to the board for any comments. And then, if not, then I'd like to, yes, Mr. Gillette.
So first of all, I'm going to say, traditionally we would do the final public comment period last, and then board. I don't know if this is something we're flipping now. This is going to be a permanent thing. I'd rather do public first, as we've always done, and finish with the board, unless you plan to go back to the board again, which we can always do. But in any case, if you're calling for the board now, I do have a couple comments. So food for thought on the other thing, and I'll make a couple comments. Let's start off like this. I was going to have dinner tonight. I think you even mentioned it to some people. I was going to have dinner, but I didn't. Instead of having dinner, I watched most of the September 14th, 2020 board meeting. That was the board meeting where we passed the Restart and Recovery Plan. I wanted to listen to board members' comments, including some of my own, to remember what I said, refresh my memory. It was enlightening. It was interesting to hear what was said, because 5 months later, I hear the same questions. Mrs. Trujillo and me, the two of us, I think, mostly asked questions about, why are we having schools? Why are we going to open schools in 2 weeks with 17% attendance on any given day when our plan allows for up to 50%? Why are we doing that? There were no good answers. Just, well, this is our plan that was submitted. We have to stick with it. We're 5 months down the road here, and we're still asking ourselves the same questions about how we get more kids into school. At the meeting, I actually said, if we don't start working on a plan now, it's going to be Washington's birthday, and still nothing will be done. Well, guess what it is today? It's Washington's birthday, and there's still no plan. I'm not a psychic or something, but you don't have to be to realize that we got started way late on the ad hoc committee. That's not Mrs. Trujillo's fault. We should have started that as soon as the district restart committee ended. We should have had a board committee immediately in place. We haven't even, and although I appreciate Dr. Antunes and her presentation tonight, and we did meet briefly, the ad hoc committee did meet briefly today. I don't think that was mentioned. We did meet briefly today to hear what that plan was and to, I guess, give our critiques on it. But I appreciate that, but we haven't even prioritized simple questions that we could have answered months ago. When we start to bring students back from more school, are we prioritizing more days of the week or longer school days? And you heard it from Dr. Antunes herself tonight, that's just something still being considered. We could have, somebody could have decided things like that long ago, so we would have a plan. This is becoming very difficult now to continue to see no concrete plan. And I'm hopeful that we can get something by the next board meeting, at least a strategy. And I've continued to offer specific strategies all along the way here. But it's not up to me. There has to be a plan from Dr. Antunes for this. And I personally, I'll give her any help that she needs. But I just see that the days, the weeks, now the months are passing. In 4 weeks, 3 weeks. 3 weeks, we're going to have the anniversary of whatever, March 13th, when school's closed. We're going to have a 1-year anniversary. And I think it's going to be a sad anniversary with no plan to reopen, as we see districts all around us, at least with a plan. So, although I'm hopeful, I'm very disappointed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for comment, Mr. Gillette. Are there any other board comments before I open it up to the public? Mr. Marini?
Yes, this is kind of along the same lines as I know obviously we're focused on getting kids back in the classrooms for educational purposes, but also on the side of social purposes. I think it's something, and it was mentioned a little earlier, that we should focus on prom and graduation as something that is top of mind now going forward. You know, at least last year's seniors, I believe, got the promposals and got that experience in before prom was kind of canceled, taken away. But now you're looking at potentially juniors and seniors missing both of those proms. Obviously, it's something that, you know, a lot of people have very good memories of, and we want to make sure that they have the experience of. So, you know, obviously we can't guarantee what the situation will be on those dates. There could be a complete nationwide lockdown, who knows? But I think barring that, we should be committing to working as hard as we can to find some way for these children to be able to have the experience of a prom as part of their senior year, especially given that they missed last year. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marini. Are there any other board member comments? Okay, see, Mr. Oliver, please.
Thank you, Ms. Trujillo. You know, again, to echo, you know, Paul and Greg's comments, I'm a little disappointed, but I'm extremely optimistic. And I'm optimistic about the following. You know, we heard some plans tonight, and there really is not going to be a perfect plan. One thing COVID taught us is there's nothing that's going to be perfect. But I know Dr. Antunes has several meetings with her leadership team, the HEA, and then again with the Restart Committee tomorrow. And I'm thankful that she is vetting it out in that communications and in that collaboration network that we promised to do this year. So that is working. But I'm optimistic we're going to have some solid dates this week, not at the next board meeting, but this week. I think the public deserves that, especially since so many surrounding districts have come up with plans. You know, the CDC recommends 5 strategies to mitigate the spread of COVID in schools. And for a long, long time, the CDC has indicated that schools are very safe for the children from the spread of COVID. But the CDC says to concentrate on 2 strategies, 2 of those 5 strategies. We don't need all 5 of those strategies as recommended by the CDC. And I can't begin to just speak the praise of Tony DeLuca and his staff for what they've done in this school. The schools are immaculate. They're being cleaned and sanitized on a daily, hourly basis. And the reason why we know that that's true is because I think as of Friday, I asked Dr. Antunes to share some numbers. And I think as of Friday, we had about 140 positive COVID cases in the school. And again, if the matrix is opening schools, positive cases, not hospitalizations, not sickness, not death, but if it's just positive cases, we may never get back to normal. I mean, it was 2 weeks to slow the spread, to keep the hospitals adequately staffed. And there's been a lot of misinformation over the past, I hate to say, happy birthday, George Washington, a year later. But out of those 140 some odd cases, 58 were staff members, adults, 80 some were students. And we know through contact tracing that we have not had one case of a student transmitting it to a teacher. The teachers are in all cases 6 feet socially distant from the students. The students are 6 feet socially distant. I'm not so sure that's a hard, fast, a must strategy that has to be implemented. Obviously, if we can, I think that's great, but I don't sure it's imperative. I think most of the districts in the area are trying to adhere to it, but those children are not socially distant when they're in their athletics. And if something happens in an athletic event, they get shut down for a couple of weeks and everything's better. So again, optimistic, I'm hopeful, but I really would love to see some dates out there. Mr. Marini, spot on. My wife was involved with a Zoom call the other day. There's a group of about 25 parents that are looking to do a prom on their own. We have no guidance for prom graduation, to my knowledge at this point. And unfortunately, a lot of other districts in the area have already scheduled proms. So once again, we're going to be behind the curve in trying to find venues that could facilitate really life experiences that these students have just been ripped out of their future, out of their past, out of their present. We need to do everything in our power to bring back some normalcy to it. So I'm very, very optimistic Dr. Antunes and the Restart Committee is going to have some positive news for us this week. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. Are there any other comments? Ms. Nurse, please.
I too think moving towards finding a prom or some type of celebration for our seniors is very important. But in doing so, I still think that we need to realize and be realistic about the parameters to ensure safety in that. It would be a school-sponsored event, so it needs to be in a place that can adhere to the same guidelines that we are promoting within our schools. I'm also in favor of more in-person instruction, again, while preserving, we have not had one positive or one case of a student spreading to a student or another teacher. And so I feel that we strongly cannot dismiss the fact that the 6 feet distancing could potentially be a key reason as to why we have not experienced one transmission in our schools. So as we move forward, and again, it is important to move forward and get more children into our schools, however, to do it safely and to do it collaboratively. So I'm glad to hear that the leadership groups are working together. I hope they continue to work together, along with the ad hoc committee working that involves the board, but all of our stakeholders need to be involved in developing this plan so everybody can do it safely and effectively by being collaborative.
Thank you, Ms. Nurse. Are there any other board comments? Mr. Kidd, please.
I definitely agree with Ms. Nurse's comments that, as a student, I really genuinely just disdain virtual learning. I don't enjoy it. I've always enjoyed the classroom environment. I get to be there. I get to learn. I get to talk with my teachers. I get to talk with my fellow students. You get to exchange ideas and thoughts. But definitely safety is #1 priority. And I think that a lot of the safety precautions the district has been using are working. And I think that if we rush into it too blindly, we might have to do something along with what Mr. Oliver said, where athletics, they're not socially distanced, and then they have to shut down for a few weeks. Having to do that back and forth with normal academics seems like it would be a mess. So I feel like rushing in too quickly would be a little bit of a rash decision. I have one other question. What are the numbers for the amount of the percentage of students we could have at the district while still maintaining socially 6 feet social distancing? Are there any numbers on that we have as concrete?
Mr. Kidd, so to answer that, I believe that each classroom's makeup is a little bit different, and so it's hard to make a generalization across the district. I would say that if all the classrooms were evenly divided on the number of students that were hybrid, it would be, I guess, easier to make that projection, but it's not. So on a red cohort day versus a gold cohort day, there may be, I think it's a classroom by classroom analysis, which I don't know that I'm not sure about that information yet, but it's not an exact projection. Are there any other comments from the board before I open it up to public comment? Okay. Before I open it up to public comments, I just wanted to take a moment and say that, I respect all board members' right to express their opinions. And I myself have often expressed many opinions in this forum. So I would never want to censor anybody. Having said that, I do want to publicly acknowledge Dr. Antunes, Mr. Mahmood, and all of the district leadership on their excellent work for reopening schools, keeping us safe, keeping staff and student safety as the most important priority in all of their decision making. And so I hear the criticism. I think that Dr. Antunes and Mr. Mahmood and leadership are doing their very, very best. They care deeply about our district, our students, our staff. And to the point that, as I spoke about earlier with respect to weather, although the public may consider that to be a nuisance, as that we pivoted from hybrid to virtual, these decisions are not made lightly, as the decisions to reopen for further in-person schooling more fully. They're not made lightly, to the point that I would say, just in conversations with Mr. Mahmood and Dr. Antunes, to the point that these are decisions that impact their own personal lives. I mean, like the amount of time and energy, which, and I say this with like respect, but I just want to share with the public. These are not easy decisions. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there to show the board's support for our senior administrators, that it's not an easy time and that the board supports you. So with that, I'd like to open it up to public comments. And I see Ms. Gordon's hand, if we could have her elevated to speak.
Absolutely. Okay, Ms. Gordon, you should be on in a few seconds.
Hello, Ms. Gordon.
Hi. I just wanted to respond to Mr. Oliver's comment about the mitigation strategies by the CDC. And I just wanted to make it known that that was what I spoke about in the beginning of my comment. And it actually does not say they pick two. It says if you are in the red, that you have to apply all 5, which I believe we are applying. It also says that one of the most important things is 6 feet of distancing. And while it may work if your kid has 2 kids in the class and the other class has 2 kids in the class that are coming in, yeah, you can fit 4 kids in a class. But if you have 8 kids in one class and 12 in the other, you cannot fit 20 kids in a class and still keep that 6 feet distancing. I know that it seems so easy. And I know that my husband's district and some of our other friends here who have, who speak their spouses' districts have offered these kinds of options. But I think that the thing that people aren't understanding when they hear about other districts is they were working on it for several months. It wasn't something that was done quickly. It was something that took time. They didn't share the information because, like Dr. Antunes said, things change regularly. And I think it's really important that people understand that you can't just say, oh yeah, we're going to send all these kids in, because you're going to have to figure out which classroom is that teacher now going to have to go to in order to fit their students. In my husband's classroom, he didn't have enough room. So he's now in the multi-purpose room of his school for some of his classes. And that's how it works. So unfortunately, I know people want, more days, but they have to understand that it's not that easy. And thank you, Dr. Antunes, for not rushing into it and for really thinking about it and continuing to keep the 6 feet distance, because the CDC does show that as a really important mitigation strategy. And actually the top 2 mitigation strategies are wearing a mask all the time, which would mean not taking a mask break, and would also be 6 feet of distancing. So I hope that we continue to keep following the CDC's recommendations and continue the 5 mitigation strategies. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. Are there any other comments from the public? Ms. Neal, please.
Yep. Ms. Neal, you should be on in a few seconds. There you go. You're on. You're muted, and there's no video.
Hello, Ms. Neal.
Good evening. My name is Tiffany Neal, and I'm at 6 Cedar Hill Terrace. As a public health professional and Hillsborough parent, I urge you to support healthy school hours for our students. I know that COVID-19 precautions and school reopening are the priorities right now, but we also need to plan for our students beyond COVID. Extensive scientific evidence shows that starting middle and high school at 8:30 a.m. or later improves physical health, mental health, and academic success among teenagers. As board members, you have the opportunity to make a real difference in our students' lives by implementing healthy school hours across the district. When children go through puberty, their circadian rhythm shifts later. Teenagers' bodies are in sleep mode from about 11 p.m. to 8 a.m., which does not match with early school start times. This is about biology and goes beyond healthy sleep habits like avoiding screens before bed. By starting school before 8:30 a.m., we are preventing teens from getting the 8 to 10 hours of sleep they need to be healthy, happy, and successful. The last time I spoke, I shared all of the benefits to student health and academics that come with later school start times. Historically, schools did start later in the morning. It wasn't until the 1970s and 80s that bus scheduling and cost savings pushed start times earlier across the country. At that time, we didn't know about the negative effects of early start times on student sleep and health. Now we have overwhelming scientific evidence and the recommendations of major education and health organizations to support later start times. Knowing what we know now, how can we continue to harm students with the status quo of early start times? I know that change is hard. We have had to deal with huge changes to school schedules and logistics in the past year due to COVID-19. Moving our schools to healthier start times would be a smaller change, and it would have a lasting positive impact on student health and academics. Dr. Antunes highlighted the importance of health and safety, academics, social and emotional health, and equity in her COVID-19 presentation tonight. Healthy school hours would improve all of these. Please start the planning process now so that we can implement healthy school hours in the fall of 2021. Don't let another school year go by with the missed opportunity of improved physical health, mental health, and academics for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Neal, for your comments. Are there any other comments from the public? Mr. Mahmood, I'm not seeing any.
I'm not seeing any either, President Trujillo.
Okay, great. So I will now close public comment and turn it back one last time to the board if there are any final comments.
I would definitely like to voice my personal support just from my experience, just in terms of literally being able to wake up an hour later has hugely improved pretty much all aspects of my health just on the weekend. If there's anything that, you know, virtual learning has done for me, it's made me value a sleep schedule. I did not value it nearly as much before, but I treasure the weekends where I get to have a really nice, a really good night of sleep. And I think that if we are able to manage as a district a way where parents are able to not have to worry about childcare for the younger kids, while the older kids are still able to not go into school earlier, I think that would be a really good decision for the well-being of all students and stakeholders.
Thank you, Mr. Kidd. Mr. Gillette.
Yeah, so, I'm gonna raise my hand and lower it. Okay. Look, I've said before that I'd be open to a later start time. I think we're talking mainly about the high school. A couple of the elementary schools also have a before 8 a.m. start time, but you could have a later start time at the high school. You know, the high school has the longest school day by maybe it's like 30 minutes longer than every other school day. So you could easily take some of that time. You could start high school at 8 o'clock and end at, I don't know, like 2:40. So you're not taking the whole 30 minutes back, but maybe 15 of it. I think high school now is 7:30 to 2:25. Am I wrong? I don't know. Something like that. You could do something like that. Change the high school schedule a little bit. I'd be open to it. But you know, the speaker for the public, and she went off my screen now, so I missed it. I lost the name already. But she said, "Start planning now." Well, we know how that works. Because we're not going to start planning now, and we are going to miss it. Just the same thing we did with the much more important thing of getting more kids back into school during the COVID period. So, you know how that goes. Doesn't go well. So that's what I have to say on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette, for your comments. Are there any other board comments? Mr. Oliver.
Keep missing the mute button there. I don't want my comments to be misconstrued, but I just want to clarify. I said the CDC recommends 5 mitigant strategies, and they say to prioritize 2. If you could do all 5, I think that's great, but it does say prioritize 2. That's from the CDC website. So, I'm not shooting from the hip here. I'm not making this stuff up. My understanding, I think we are in the yellow zone, and we have been in the yellow zone. Correct me, Mr. Gillette, Mr. Mahmood, if I'm mistaken, but I think we are in the yellow zone, and we have been in the yellow zone now for a couple of weeks. So, again, I think the key strategy in most physicians that I've talked to and most research that I've read is, if you're not feeling well, stay home, right? That's the best strategy at all. Quarantine yourself, stay home. Mask, social distancing, good hygiene, those are all good mitigants, but clearly the best mitigant is stay home if you're not sick. If you're sick, just stay home. Stay away from everyone else. Quarantine your specified days. If you're traveling, quarantine. That's the key strategy. I just don't want my comments to be misconstrued. The other point is that, again, and I keep saying this, I don't begrudge anyone who wants to have their children be in a virtual world. You have that option. But I don't have that luxury as a board member. I need to listen to all of the people in town and all of their options and all of their opinions. And there's a lot of people, and they're growing, that want their children in school more than 2 days a week, 4 days a week, 5 days a week. And if they're okay with keeping that 6 foot social distancing barrier, whether it's 4 feet or 5 feet, if they're okay with it, then who are we to really countermand that? So, we could read all the reports in the world. A study came out over the weekend that Johns Hopkins said we're going to have herd immunity by April, regardless of the vaccination process. Very well read, very well spoken, very knowledgeable doctor from Johns Hopkins. We're learning more and more about this awful virus. But again, we're here as the 9 panelists, as the 9 board members, as the 9 elected officials to represent the entire community, not just the people that want to be isolated, that want to be in quarantine, that want to be in a virtual world. We need to listen to everyone's different needs, and we need to try to address those. Do it safely, but we need to start doing it, because before you know it, I don't know who's the next birthday, Mr. Gillette. George Washington's just passed, so I'm very optimistic we're going to hear some news this week. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your optimism, Mr. Oliver. Mr. Gillette.
So, just real quick, Mr. Oliver made a good point about staying away from school for staff and students if you're sick. That's the number one thing. We've had a year of experience now with the virus, and they know that asymptomatic people rarely pass, especially asymptomatic children rarely pass it. I like to look at it this way, and maybe this is something we could think about when we meet again in 2 weeks. Keeping the infected people away from school probably solves 99% of the issue with transmission in schools. That's what's keeping us safe, keeping the people home. You're not pushed to go in because you could always have the virtual option, and things like that. So that's done. So how much are we willing to give away in kids' education, in their mental health, and everything else, and their socialization skills for the younger kids, everything, to try to close maybe a 1% gap that we could probably never close that anyway. Please, let's think about that. I know Dr. Antunes said it, and Mrs. Trujillo reiterated it, that the health and safety is the most important thing. Let's please not forget the mental health of the students in this. Trying to close that 1% infection gap with all of these measures where spread among 5 to 17-year-old students is increasing all the time. It's increasing, but there's still 0 deaths between 5 to 17-year-old in New Jersey. Still 0. You can't say it's because they weren't exposed. They're exposed plenty now. Plenty. That's the fastest rising group of all the others in percentage of COVID cases. They comprise over 8% of all cases now are in that group. In the spring, it was like 2.5%. They're getting a larger share of cases now, but still 0 deaths. Every mitigation thing that we're doing here is for staff. There's nothing here that we're doing that's helping students at all, nothing. So let's think about that for next time. How far do we go? How long do we go with this, trying to close a tiny gap of health and safety and put the students' education and mental health continually at risk? Thank you. I'm really done now.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette. Ms. Maroon.
I just wanted to go back to the Healthy Start times that was talked about. I do want to mention that it has been on the education agenda for quite some time, even on this last one. And we usually always have a brief discussion about it. And, you know, when we can start planning and talk about it robustly. In fact, I think this past meeting might have been the first education meeting that we decided not to talk about it because there was so much on the agenda that we needed to get through. But it is always on there, and it is something that we do discuss. And we actually have mentioned about, you know, sooner than later because of all these changes. So it has been discussed. It is something that, you know, that we've talked about. So I don't want people to think that we just keep brushing it off, because it is still there, and we are going to revisit it. But again, we are thinking the first and foremost thing that needs to take place is how to safely get a better return to school.
Thank you, Ms. Maroon. Ms. Stats and then Ms. Nurse.
I just want to say, I do think it isn't just the parents of the virtual students who are being heard. The other parents are being heard. That's why we have the hybrid model. Again, it's not perfectly what they want. There's no perfect solution for anyone other than those that would really hurt another group. And there has been progress. You know, we had the at-risk students that have been in the buildings 4 days a week for a while now, and then today we started with the special needs students and ESL and other groups. They're now in the buildings 4 days a week. So the parents of students who are want more in school are being heard. And I still want to emphasize that we do have to acknowledge another group, and that's staff. And they have you know, their levels of stress regarding their mental health, as well as their concerns about their physical health. And I understand that, yes, there haven't been deaths among the younger ages, but there is a whole spectrum between nothing happening, you know, no symptoms or whatever, to death. I mean, there are some younger people, especially, you know, the teenage years, where they are experiencing some health issues as a result of contracting the virus. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stats. Ms. Nurse, please.
I had similar comments to Ms. Stats about the fact that our staff is very important, and I know that there's been comments about we're just doing this for staff, but we often say that staff is the backbone of our institution, and they are on the front line. So staff has to be an important factor in this, and keeping our staff safe. In terms of, you know, we're evolving within our group of 9 in administration. They're all different views, and once we move away from guidelines from professionals, then we are speaking about our opinions and not the parameters in which we should abide by here, because we are not the CDC, we are not the professionals, we are not doctors. So in one report, we might see evidence that shows one, just like in anything that we discuss, there's evidence to support anything that you would like to believe. Or you feel strongly about. So that is why our district, our administration is relying on the guidelines set forth by the departments of health, by the CDC. And our children, although thank goodness they're not as affected as adults, like Ms. Stat said, they are still affected. And not only are we worried about our staff who have had greater concerns in terms of health and mortality rates, but these children might not be symptomatic, but they are going home to families where they live with parents and grandparents. So we are taking care of the community and the staff, and that is important and should be at the forefront. We should not be putting any particular group on a back burner in favor of another group. We support the children. And in terms of education, and I just, as a teacher on the front lines of this myself, teachers are doing a fabulous job with what they have. But I have to say that in what I see, kids that are learning virtually are getting the same quality education because they are both the hybrid students and the virtual students are listening to the same teacher who is teaching the same lesson. So there might be some more social components to it. Waving hi from across the hall, talking for the young kids during snack time. But in terms of quality of education, okay, I don't want to say that there's a disservice to the kids that are learning virtually. They are getting the same lesson that the kids that are present in school are doing, and teachers are ensuring that that is happening. So yes, socially, it's probably impacting mental health, which is also important. Yes, but educationally, these children are learning, whether they're learning from home or within the classroom. And thank you to staff. Thank you to the central administration for all the work that you're doing to try to move forward. I think with hearing Dr. Antunis's thoughts about where the possibilities, as she outlined about all of the different ideas and concepts that now can be explored within the ad hoc committee, within central administration, hopefully developing ideas and thoughts and getting feedback from other stakeholders. Yes, I am positive that there is a way to bring more children back, doing it safely and caring about everybody involved.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nurse. Are there any other comments from the board, Mr. Kidd?
Yeah, I definitely agree to a certain extent with what Ms. Nurse said. I think that the main impact of being in person right now versus virtual on learning is just the environment itself. You get to remove yourself from your home space. Even regardless of the other people, you literally remove yourself, are in a new space that can work more effectively. It took me months to build a desk, get a layout that worked, and actually finally be able to get in a space where I could really work efficiently for virtual school. And I'm sure that was a way for a lot of even staff who had to adjust to teaching from their home when it was all virtual. And I think that dropping social distancing doesn't really impact that portion of it. I think that we could be utilizing gyms more effectively if we're able to. I don't know the budget or really any details around this. I'm just kind of spewing words, but literally just being able to have students go into a building and be socially distanced sometimes is going to help them be in that separate headspace to be able to sit down, work, then go home, relax and be with their families. I think that if we're able to set that up and do that safely, that is like the dream scenario right now. But I think that rushing into any of this too rashly is a really bad idea.
Thank you, Mr. Kidd. Are there any other comments from the board? Seeing none, then I will just close by saying that I appreciate the robust conversation from my fellow board members, and I appreciate that you took the time to share your opinions tonight. I also want to thank everyone for the conversation we had over the last few days with yourselves and Ms. Stats and myself, and just talking and trying to kind of finalize the board goals that we were, and I appreciate and thank you for adopting the tentative board goals tonight. I think this will help our board improve our governance. We can always improve. And I again, want to thank our administration for their dedication, hard work in trying to bring back students more fully, as well as keeping everyone safe. And so with that, if there are no other comments, then I will take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Pulsifer. Second. Thank you, Ms. Nurse. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. I think this meeting is adjourned. We will see you on Monday, March 8th. Thank you very much. Good night.
We're gonna have a nice 2 weeks.